International Steering and Sailing Rules. Rule 6. Safe Speed. Every vessel shall at all times proceed at a safe speed so that she can take proper and effective action to avoid collision and be stopped within a distance appropriate to the prevailing circumstances and conditions. In determining a safe speed, the following factors shall be among those taken into account. By all vessels, the state of visibility.
Restricted visibility brings more challenges. Slowing down gives more time to assess any potential risk of collision. Many collisions have occurred due to excessive speed in fog.
The traffic density, including concentration of fishing vessels or any other vessels.
Recreational vessels' congestion can also pose a hazard for deep draft ships traffic. Since smaller vessels usually operate close to the coastline, adjusting course to run a few extra miles offshore can help you stay clear of these vessels.
The maneuverability of the vessel, with special reference to stopping distance and turning ability in the prevailing conditions.
The wheelhouse poster, required by IMO Assembly Resolution 60115 and 33 CFR 164.35, paragraph G, for vessels 1,600 tons and above, contains invaluable maneuvering characteristics and stopping distance for different load conditions.
At night, the presence of background light, such as from shore lights or from backscatter of her own lights.
This problem is ever present when navigating near cities, especially densely populated cities. Also, fog can create backscatter from your own light.
The state of wind, sea, and current, and the proximity of navigational hazards. The draft in relation to the available depth of water.
Shallow water, for practical purposes, considered water depth of about 2.5 times the deepest draft of the vessel, significantly affects the handling characteristics of a vessel. As a vessel speeds through shallow water, the water displaced by her hull is not promptly replaced by surrounding water. Hence, a low-pressure area develops, and the vessel sinks deeper in the water, or squats. In fact, squats can cause unexpected grounding. Other shallow water effects include, but are not limited to, maneuvering difficulties, increased engine load, increased stopping distance, increased turning circle, and vibration. Speed reduction is very effective in minimizing shallow water effects. Case in history. Squatting in the deep. On the evening of August 7, 1992, the passenger vessel Queen Elizabeth II departed from the anchorage near the town of Oak Bluffs, Massachusetts, 50 minutes behind schedule. The vessel was carrying 1,824 passengers and 1,003 crew members. A pilot was also on board the vessel. Prior to leaving the anchorage, the pilot and bridge team did not discuss and agree on a navigation plan for departing Vineyard Sound. The ship's navigator had laid out a track line on the charts that had been approved by the master. However, the pilot preferred to pilot by his own method, which consisted of using buoys primarily and also radar from time to verify position. The ship's master consulted with the pilot about increasing speed to make up for lost time. After sufficiently clearing small boat and ferry traffic, the Queen Elizabeth II's speed was increased while outbound in Vineyard Sound. The vessel's speed eventually averaged about 24.6 knots. Shortly after the vessel passed the NA buoy, the pilot had the course altered to the right. The pilot had not told the master of the watch officers of this course change nor of his intentions. When the ship steadied on the new course, the second officer plotted the vessel's position and projected the track line ahead. He noted that the extended track line crossed over a shoal. He informed the first officer, who in turn informed the master. The master told the first officer to tell the pilot that he would rather pass further south of Sow and Pig's Reef and toward the original track line as marked on the ship's charts by the navigator. The pilot complied and had the vessel's course altered to the left. The second officer drew out the new course track line on the chart. He noticed that the line passed over a 39-foot sounding, but he was not concerned because the vessel had a draft of only 32 feet 4 inches. This meant an expected under-keel clearance of 6 feet 8 inches. In fact, the tide was predicted to have a height of plus 1.5 feet. Thereby, the under-keel clearance would increase to 8 feet 2 inches. However, the Queen Elizabeth II ran aground about 2.5 miles south of Cuttyhunk Island. Both the master and the pilot later testified that they considered passing over the 39-foot sounding with a plus 1.5-foot tide not to be a problem. Although no injuries or deaths resulted from this accident, the damage was significant. Temporary and permanent repairs cost about $13.2 million. In addition, the total revenue lost for the period before the vessel returned to service on October 2, 1992, was estimated at $50 million. The National Transportation Safety Board determined that the probable cause of the grounding of the Queen Elizabeth II was the failure by the pilot, master, and watch officers to discuss and agree on a navigation plan for departing Vineyard Sound and to maintain situational awareness after an unplanned course change. Contributing to the accident was the lack of information available on the Queen Elizabeth II about how speed and water depth affect the ship's underkeel clearance.
Additionally, by vessels with operational radar, the characteristics, efficiency, and limitations of the radar equipment.
There are two basic marine radars, the X-band and the S-band. The X-band radar is the most commonly carried radar on smaller vessels. It can trigger and pick up signals from search and rescue transponders. The X-band radar has a wavelength of 3 cm and operates within the 10 GHz frequency band. This relatively high frequency gives the X-band radar higher resolution and a crisper image. However, in heavy rain or adverse weather, 3 cm radar screen can become cluttered due to returns from rain clouds and other precipitation. Hence, it can be difficult to pick up radar targets in rain squalls. The S-band radar, on the other hand, has a wavelength of 10 cm and operates within the 3 GHz frequency band. This relatively low frequency does not give as high resolution as the X-band radar, but the S-band radar is less affected by rain and fog. Hence, radar contacts can generally be picked up in rain squalls. SOLAS 5 Regulation 19 requires vessels of 3,000 gross tons and over to have both X and S-band radars. For vessels of 10,000 gross tons and over, one of the radars must have ARPA capabilities.
Any constraints imposed by the radar range scale in use.
Best radar practice is to occasionally increase radar range for early detection. Many deep-draft vessels with 2 radars will sometimes set one on a 12-mile range and the other on 24-mile while at sea.
The effect on radar detection of the sea state, weather, and other sources of interference.
Sea clutter is caused by echoes from high seas or choppy waves that cover the central part of the radar display with random signals. Whenever sea clutter conceals the radar image, suppress it with the anti-sea clutter control. This control, also known as sensitivity time control, or STC, reduces the sensitivity of the radar receiver at a short range to improve the radar image in the central part of the display. Use caution when suppressing sea clutter so nearby radar targets are not lost. Unlike sea clutter, which affects the central part of the radar display, rain clutter can affect the entire radar display. Rain clutter can be caused by spray-like echoes from rain droplets, clouds, snow, and other precipitation. The anti-rain clutter control is used to suppress rain clutter and improves display of echoes from the actual radar contacts. This control is also known as fast time constant, or FTC. The anti-rain clutter, like any suppression filter, should be used with caution so actual radar contacts are not filtered out or lost.
The possibility that small vessels, ice, and other floating objects may not be detected by radar at an adequate range.
Smaller targets, especially wooden and fiberglass boats, materials many fishing and recreational vessels are made of, may not be detected at close range. Thus, reducing the range scale on the radar may help improve detection. On March 11, 1997, the U.S. Coast Guard issued Safety Alert 04-97 entitled, "Wood and Fiberglass Vessels Make Poor Radar Targets." According to the Safety Alert, small vessel operators should not assume large vessels see them on radar or know what they are actually doing. A 60-foot Eastern rigged trawler and a 770-foot tanker collided in the Gulf of Maine on September 5, 1996. The trawler suffered heavy damage in the incident. Only the evasive action taken by the tanker at the last minute prevented the loss of the trawler and possibly the lives of the 2 fishermen involved. While many factors contributed to this collision, Coast Guard investigators believe that commercial fishermen and boaters of all kinds routinely overestimate the collision avoidance capabilities of large ships and do not typically recognize what they need to do in order to reduce the risk of being involved in a collision. For example, in this case, most of the 1,000-plus ships that transit the Gulf of Maine each year use advanced collision avoidance computer systems that work off a ship's radar. These computers can automatically or manually acquire and track radar targets and will sound an alarm to the vessel's deck officer if a risk of collision is calculated. These systems are usually very accurate and are relied upon by mariners worldwide to avoid collisions at sea. Unfortunately, in order for these systems to operate effectively, they must detect and track radar targets continuously over a period of time. Vessels that provide intermittent or weak, poor radar signatures significantly hinder the ability of the computers to accurately calculate true vessel movement. This can lead to cases where a vessel being tracked by the computer may be maneuvering quite differently than what is indicated by the computer data. Because of this, small vessel operators should be wary that just because a ship is large and apparently sophisticated, there is no guarantee that the ship is fully aware of your vessel's movements. All small boat operators can significantly reduce the risk of having a collision with other vessels by ensuring that their boat provides the biggest, strongest, most visible, and continuous radar signatures possible. By improving the ability of your vessel to be seen by radar, you significantly increase the possibility that your vessel will be clearly detected at the earliest opportunity and that any collision avoidance computer that tracks your vessel will do so as accurately as possible. Operators of small vessels are cautioned that wood and fiberglass are particularly poor radar-reflecting materials and produce weak radar signatures. Vessels constructed of wood and fiberglass can significantly improve their radar signatures and increase their radar visibility by ensuring that flat metal surfaces of radar reflectors are provided on the vessel's exterior. These devices should be located in unobstructed areas on the vessel as high above the waterline as possible. Radar reflectors are also required equipment for all federally documented commercial fishing vessels of non-metallic construction that operate outside the boundary line or with more than 16 individuals on board, as per 46 Code of Federal Regulations 28.235, unless the vessel is fitted with gear that provides a radar signature from a distance of 6 miles. Equally important in reducing the risk of collision is making sure your vessel complies with all navigational lighting requirements. Besides being required by law, navigation lights, often referred to as running lights, provide the best opportunity for mariners to visually verify or quickly assess the heading of another vessel. If the navigation lights are incorrect, or in some cases missing altogether, a deck officer cannot easily determine another vessel's heading. Further, the use of bright deck lights should be avoided. While the bright lights themselves might improve the chance of being seen by other vessels, the lights can obscure a vessel's navigation lights. Deck watch officers might also confuse the use of bright lights with active stationary fishing and will assume a vessel is not moving. Both of these situations can cause confusion and increase the possibility of collision. Small vessel operators are also reminded that one of the best collision avoidance tools at sea is the proper and early use of a VHF radio. Remember, when calling another vessel via VHF, clearly give a description of your vessel, its position and movement, as well as an approximate description, position, and movement of the vessel you're calling. Additionally, when hailing a ship, it is best to avoid the use of local terminology and slang because a ship's officer might be unfamiliar with a specific locality. The use of vague terms such as calling the ship on my bow should also be avoided because the range of a VHF radio can be significant, and calls such as these can cause a great deal of confusion, especially if there are other vessels in the vicinity. This safety alert is provided for informational purpose only and does not relieve any domestic or international safety, operational, or material requirement. Developed by the Office of Investigations and Casualty Analysis.
The number, location, and movement of vessels detected by radar. The more exact assessment of the visibility that may be possible when radar is used to determine the range of vessels or other objects in the vicinity.